Hello, hello,
Hello.
everyone. Oh, wait. Hello, everybody. Welcome to round three of the Simufur Pro and Platinum Invitational Series. We're here tonight in the twisty, turny, very technical Snetterton circuit. I'm your commentator Suzuka Shark. Alongside me is Wolfin Foxdale, and behind the screens broadcasting is none other than Paliku'i.
Hello. Super excited to be here. As Suzuka stated, this is a very technical track. It's not one of the tracks that we often on, as it's kind of one of those tracks that if you ask people around, like, what is your favorite track? This is not one of those tracks that people like usually list. It's one of those very unforgiving tracks where even the smallest mistake can really lead to a lot of heartbreak, and there's not a lot of room for error. If you'll notice, like as we follow along these cars, there is no like really anywhere outside of the grass. So one little touch of the grass and you are in for a very rough time.
Absolutely, Snetterton, a track full of lots of treacherous corners that the drivers will have to go through. This is one of the best circuits that can really test the guts of all of these pro class drivers.
Yes, it's definitely one of the very technical tracks. Super excited though. This is going to be a really interesting race with, you know, being in a track that I guess you could say I wouldn't say they're unfamiliar with, but a track that we like as I said, we don't really use all that often. So it's going to take a little if they haven't been on the practice server that we do have during the week, they're going to be it's going to be a bit of a like not like riding a bike, but kind of, you know, getting into a car, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, as you can see right now, Azure Goat is on the track and currently setting a lap, like all these drivers for practice, because after this after this practice session comes qualifying, and now this week qualifying has been shifted from 30 minutes to 20 minutes, so that's 10 less minutes for the pro drivers to be setting a lap time that would define where they start on the grid.
Yes, it.
Currently, we are looking at the number 21 Rexy car of Caf, who's just come out of that corner into I believe that is Palmer, and that Porsche has been quite a dominant force in Simufur. I'm not sure if they've won in Silverstone last week, but from what we've seen in Spa, they've they've kept it clean and they've won that race.
Yes, and they've been very dominant so far. Their main competition has been Azure, and it's been incredibly close. But unfortunately, a lot of times it's just. I would also like to add. I wouldn't say luck, because there is no luck in racing. It just happens. It's stuff that it's just racing. But a lot of the times we've had Cavi has had with the racing so far. It's either been an incident, or in the case of Silverstone last week, it was a disconnect. Fez had a fairly good run going into the second half of the stint, and unfortunately, the servers did not appease to that, and unfortunately, they were disconnected very close to the end, and that was just super unfortunate.
Yeah, that is a very wild thing about sim racing. You do not know what happens. Yeah, there are lots of factors that can come into play and lots of things that can go wrong. Take from my experience in Kyalami, I had that pole, but a few incidents as well as a wheel disconnect. Well, let's just say that's one of the most brutal examples on how the worst can come towards you.
Yeah, definitely, and it's definitely very like when you have that happen, it's just such a heartbreaking moment for the person involved. But as we follow along now with Simon Luck, definitely another one of those drivers that has like been kind of keeping their nose clean. They haven't been as I would say they haven't been I wouldn't say on the radar, but they've definitely been keeping their nose clean and paying the advantage of being like in the top five both the last two times.
Absolutely, third place in the championship, and the cameras were pretty much focused on him. He was pretty much staying under the radar, but he does get those points in the bag coming across the line, and that's what matters, as that clearly brought Simon to where he is right now, third in the standings.
Definitely, it does help to keep your note. It does help to, not really have any mistakes, just to be consistent. Consistent is very important, and what even more is important, like if you come down toward the latter half of the races, it can really, really help you in the end. Because if you have like a really good race and you get that win, well, that might just win you the championship.
And we're looking into a new entrant here, which is, well, I believe is Spirit in the number 621 Porsche. That is a nice looking Porsche. It's going to be interesting to see how they'll do in this race, as they're currently fourth in. They have the fourth fastest time in the practice session, only 7/10 down on Azure.
Yeah, they were, I believe, and I can be corrected on this. I think the last race they did with us was the GT3 season, uh, last year. Technically, last year at the end of the year, but they did have a bit of a rough situation in Olton Park where they went just a little bit wide, touched the grass, and unfortunately, it caused them to go headlong into the barrier going into the hairpin, and that was their race done.
Absolutely, but it's nice to see Spirit bounce back into, let's say, fighting spirit. As what we say in Bluey. That's the team motto. Anyway, it's nice to see Spirit back on track and setting those laps when it matters.
Yes, and as speaking of setting times, we've got about a minute and a half left in practice before we enter quali. So the drivers are now just probably setting up their quali setups, making sure everything's a-okay, good to go for qualifying. And as Suzuka pointed out earlier, it is going to be a 20-minute qualifying session, 10 minutes less than what we have normally done, and that means it's going to be a lot more emphasis on getting those laps done and getting them done right and not having to worry about something happening. And it's it definitely limits the narrow of mistakes that you can make and getting those laps in right.
Absolutely, there's going to be more pressure on setting that perfect lap, as Caffey has set the new fastest lap, which is a 1:47 dead, and 6/10 faster than Azure. But remember, this is practice. This is not the definitive times, but it's a rough estimate on what we'll expect in qualifying.
Definitely, Caffey has definitely been one of the top two drivers, not just with the two wins, but just in qualifying in general. They've been, I would say, within like half a second or even less of Azure and Simon Luck. So, oh, as we see Caffey get a little bit loose going out of the corner, that was definitely a beautiful save. You can definitely tell, like, this is just one of those tracks, like, one little mistake and it could be a race over for you here.
Absolutely, yes. Snetterton, you really want to push the limit, but at the same time, you really don't want to go past it. Caffey is close to that borderline, but he's made the car stick and he's still on a lap. But unfortunately, this is 1/10 slower than their last best lap. How?
Definitely, but as we stated, this is practice, and practice session has now officially ended. So Caffey is going to come into the pit, call it a day, and get ready for qualifying.
I believe the last one out is the 992 Aston Martin of Dipping Sauce across the line. What can they do? And immediately we jump into qualifying. That time does, we don't care about that time. as all
Uh,
the drivers get ready to come out of the pits and set a lap time with Azure, the lead, the McLaren, the RRP McLaren, is the first one to come out the pits. Behind them is the shortcut Blue Shark E-Racing Aston Martin of Newt. The first two out. Behind them is who I believe is Wushel.
yeah, it was Wushel.
Yes, we do have a nice space. We do have quite some space between these three. They're keeping it respectful, which is a good thing. And with a track like Snetterton, I don't. This is going to be more about the corner bits. This this is where your lap times matter, where the twisty sections
Ooh,
are.
that's Newt wide.
Oh, I think
That's
they're
Newt
pulling
very
off.
wide. I wonder what I don't know what happened there, but they maybe just still trying to warm up the tires and maybe just made a little mistake and went wide. Um, Let Wushel by, but now they're back on the lap. Remember, this is just an outlap, so it's not like it's going to matter at all. But that's definitely not going to help their tires, and that might affect their actual times later down the road.
Absolutely, yes. Like you said, a bit of dirt could mess up the grip of these cars. You really want those tires to be scrubbed clean, no dirt, no marbles. You want those tires at an optimal temperature, an optimal cleanliness, let's say. As we
Yeah,
go on board with Azure for the first qualifying lap, as they head into Murray's to start the lap, is a not put the power down on the home straight as they head into turn 1, which is the richest corner. A medium speed right-hander. You really as Azure brakes hard, you really have to throw the car in there and get as much speed as you can, go as wide as you can without touching grass as they head into the Montreal hairpin. Really tight corner, and you really have to wait till you pin the throttle, and Azure's done that quite well as he breaks into this Palmer's corner. It's going to be not much of an apex there, but really quite a wide exit, which is what you want as they brake really hard into the next tight corner, Agostini. This is a endless purgatory of tight corners, but we get finally a mid-speed corner as a slight tap on the brakes, a left turn into Hamilton, and then back again into the tight corners into Walgies, which slowly opens up. Slowly climb the throttle and another tap on the brakes into the Williams right-hander as Azure looks a bit wide. That might affect their lap time. As we head into the Bentley straight, the back straight of this circuit. As coming up under the bridge, you have under the bridge braking hard into Brundle, that left-hander really have to brake during the corner, and to Nelson, a tight, nice degree right-hander as they head into the next mid-speed corner of Bomb Hole. Get that car as wide as you can into the Coram corner, a long right-hander corner. It's really tricky on these GT cars. It's really tricky on the tires, and to the tight corner of Murray's. That's the final corner. Put down the power, and what time does that give Azure? Let's see the timing boards. That is a 1 minute 40. That's a 1 minute 47 knot. As our next lap time is from Wushel, who gets a 147.3, 3/10 down on Azure. Who's the next one across the line? That is Saber, I believe, in the number 523 Lambo. What can they do? That's Saber with a 147.7. As the times keep crawling down, here comes Nick with a 1 minute 48 flat, and RK note that is P5. That is no time yet, as we have Saber on camera doing another lap, and as these times begin to tumble down. But I believe that's the times we have for now, because the next set of drivers are on an invalid lap and are focused on their next one.
Yeah, we're keeping an eye on the times here at the moment, and I'm seeing a little bit of an improvement from Wushel, from everyone really, because remember, it takes a couple laps for the tires to warm up and get in that optimal grip. And as I say that, I'm as you say, RK right now on a 1 second gain. So if they're able to keep that that car in line. Oh, and as I say that, we have a new fastest lap, a Caffey with a 146.482. Beautiful lap from Caffey. I'm gonna say, I still am gonna say it. I believe these Porsches are really gonna do well here with all these tight corners. They've been very well known to handle tracks like this and do very well.
Absolutely. The majority of the cars, which are Porsches, are at the forefront of the grid, which is an interesting change from what I've saw last 2 weeks back at Spa. As you say that, our next lap comes from Wuschel, setting another lap. What can that Porsche do? They're currently 5 tenths down the delta, and that's P2 with a 146.8. But these drivers are constantly improving. So we might see Azure make a comeback and show them what we can do. But for the meantime, we have RK coming up across the line. What time can they get in that black and white McLaren? As Nick comes to the line first, and there comes RK. That is P3 for RK with a 146.8. Azure still on their lap and really tight into the corner and coming into Hamilton as goes into straight dab on the brakes. Nice sweeping left-hander, and Azure is really fighting the delta as the delta keeps on going up, going down. Right now it's going down, but we have Simon Luck in the Aston Martin, who was recently set a 1 minute 46.8, and that's Azure backing out. I think they're not happy with that lap time, but Bushel now on another charge, but this doesn't look to be quick as they are currently 1/10 down on their fastest lap. Who else is gaining on their delta? Only a few of them, not by a lot. But here comes Caffey. Caffey is slightly is Caffey's going to have another go on their lap. Wuschel's going to have another go on their lap. I believe Wuschel has more time to gain.
Wuschel has a little bit of time to gain at the moment. We're just kind of keeping an eye on the times at the moment. Not major improvements as of yet. As I say that, I just noticed Spirit is gaining a little bit of time. 2 tenths up their best as they head down. I believe
that is the Bentley straight.
Yeah, down Bentley straight. As we follow along with Caffey as they go in and off the grass, I believe they are going to head to the pit lane and get some adjustments. As we see Vossi,
oh my goodness, that was snap overseer from Spirit.
With snap overseer, and then Vossi went straight into the off track. I don't know what happened there as well, but that's definitely not going to be good for their tires.
Absolutely.
But I will give them credit. That was a pretty good save. They weren't sent into the wall, and they didn't really go too deep into the grass. So their tires probably are a little bit, definitely not worse for wear, but they're definitely doing better.
Speaking of the Brundle and Nelson combo that, as you saw, Spirit got recently caught up in. I remember last time Simufur was here, I think it was the M2 series. A lot of drivers got caught up by that combo. Yes.
Yeah, just like that. As the replay shows, it's just like it just takes one little mistake and a little too much power in the throttle, especially with these Porsches. The rear end just kicks right out of you, and then that's it. And yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting during the race to see what comes up.
Yeah, this makes me wonder how many incidents will we see here in Brundle and in the Brundle and Nelson combo. But scratch that, we see Randomly, who is gaining 7 tenths off their last lap as they head into the Bentley straight. They're currently 8 tenths down now. This is almost a second. Randomly, the current biggest gainer of this current qualifying session. What can they do on their lap as they head into the Brundle-Nelson combo? Really tricky corner, but Randomly gets that quite easily. Is currently up by 9 tenths, almost a full second, but losing a bit of time on bomb hole, pushing them back into 7 tenths down. But that doesn't matter as the final corner coming into Murray's. What can they do? How can they improve on their lap time? It's quite wide there, but they're Randomly currently 8 tenths down their delta. This is an improvement, that's for sure. And Randomly crosses the line, and that pushes them up to 8th place.
Yeah, beautiful run by Randomy. The Ferrari is definitely agreeing with this track, even despite despite some of these cars that have like Randomy. Or I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Despite these cars somewhat having a little bit of issues in the tighter corners, Randomy is just making it work and doing well as we see Caffey
Oh
get
my
really
goodness!
loose. They looks like they touched the curb and then slammed into the wall. That is super unfortunate. And then, unfortunately, a little one of our signs is an unfortunate victim to Caffey going wide as we follow Wushel along. I believe this is on their way to Hamilton on
Yes,
the
Wushel
in
is no
yeah.
Wushel is on the coming up. Wushel's coming down onto the Agostini corner
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, on the Agostini, you're right. We're gonna try to get a replay of what happened with Caffey right now and see what happened. It looks like maybe they had a little bit of oversteer, but I think we may have I don't think we're gonna be able to get it. Yeah, unfortunately, we aren't gonna be able to get that replay. We do apologize. We did our best. Um, yep. As we keep an eye on
There we
everything
go.
going. Oh, here we go. We have the replay up. Let's see what happens. I think they touched they got a little bit too wide. Yeah, exactly. They went really wide and unfortunately went deep into that curb. And I think just a little bit of the one of the tires, I think, just hit the grass and that was it. That was control gone. As we follow along
Absolutely.
with
Coming back to Azure, who is currently 5 tenths down. Can they improve on their time? They have been constantly fighting on the forefront. Can they redeem themselves and get a pole? It doesn't look likely, but considering the strength of those Porsches, but Azure currently carrying that McLaren to heights, the unknown. But but they have to get past RK as well, who is also in the same machinery, but Azure looks to have a good lap time here, 4 tenths down. Where will that promote him? This
I
could be,
could be pole. It will
that
be
is
pole.
that is Azure on pole position. We
Yep,
have a
pole position
new
by 1/10.
1/10. It's going to be close between the McLarens and the Porsches. This is the fight we've been seeing so much, the Porsche versus the McLaren. This is quite an interesting battle between the two manufacturers, as we do have Simon Luck as well in the Aston, but for the most part, it's McLaren's versus Porsches.
Yeah, it's been McLaren versus Porsche with, I would say, the tracks that we have been, the previous two tracks that we've been on, the tracks more favored the McLaren, but here I'm gonna suspect that the Porsches are gonna do a little bit better here, as judging by the just judging by the times. As we follow along with Saber, they have a 3/10 gain on this track now, even more so, almost into the 4/10 as they head out of the hairpin, heading down toward Agostini and Hamilton. Oh, but they
They're
got a little bit
wide.
too wide, super wide. That is so unfortunate. It looks like they touched a little bit of the curb going in and went a little bit too deep, and unfortunately, it cost them dearly on what was an amazing lap that would have actually, I think, would have gotten them at least one position gain had that had worked through. As we follow along with RK, they have now started to begin to make a little bit of a climb. We'll see where that winds them up as they head down the Bentley Straight on their way to Nelson. Let's see what happens here. Going through
Ooh.
Nelson and into Grundle nice and easily. A little bit of a slide coming out, but they were able to save it. Nothing really lost. Heading down in the bomb hole, it will be a nice run. Nice and easy on their way to Murray's. So far, so good, with a little bit of a gain heading into Murray's, a little bit deep, but it does not matter. It actually will gain them a little bit of time. 3/10 up. This might actually get them pull. Let's see. It will be P3. Close, but no cigar.
Yeah, it's close but not quite. That is 1/10 down on Azure. The nearest driver so far, it's still Caffey in that Rexy Porsche.
Yeah, but as keeping an eye on the times, RK is on a charge. They're getting off that previous time with a 1/10 gain, but they get a little bit too deep heading into the hairpin. They were able to save it, but all that time that they gained is now lost, heading on their way to Agostini, n- trying to regain that time they have. So far, so good. Remember, still got a little bit of time, and we still have 4 minutes left. So even if this doesn't work out, they still have a little bit of time to try to make another run. But I think if RK keeps this up, it will be a pretty good improvement. They may be able to get themselves in the P2 spot.
Yeah, RK currently gaining a lot of time as they exit the Williams and head into the Bentley straight. And RK will now close into the Brundle and Nelson combo, which is going to be interesting. How will they take it? They take it nice and clean. A much better line by the looks of it than last time. Currently 2/10 down. As, ooh, a bit deep into the bubble,
Ooh,
and it's a spinner!
way too deep going into bomb hole, and unfortunately, it cost them. It caught a little bit of the grass, and that spun them around. I'm keeping an eye on the times.
That's
We've got another
Caffey! Caffey
Caffey.
stole pole!
Yeah, Caffey did steal pole by, oh man, like not even, I want to say, point 0.3. And at the last minute, but there's still 3 minutes to go. All Azure needs to do is really gain a tenth, and they could gain the pole back. But Caffey is on an absolute tear with a still gaining on their current time. Let's see where it gets them. As
Absolutely. Caffey has quarter of a tenth actually advantage over Azure, and it's only been the 3 minutes remaining. Who will come out on top? Is it Caffey or Azure? This is quite close qualifying between the two.
they've been very, like, as far as the times have gone, they have both been very close, and the competition between the two of them has been absolutely stellar. Aside from a few minor incidents, but so far it is going to be Caffey on top with um, a few tenths up, and unfortunately, Azure's struggling to try to get some time, struggling to get an improvement. As we keep an eye on the time, I'm keeping an eye on the times as well. It looks like we have, well, we did have a little bit of a gain coming from newbie, but unfortunately, it looks like it. Unfortunately, they made a slight mistake and unfortunately lost a little bit of time. But as we follow along with Caffey, they're heading down toward out of bomb hole and on their way to Murray's. So far, so good. No gain, but we'll see. Ooh, as they get a little bit squirrely heading out of Murray's, they're able to save it, but that's time lost.
Yes, absolutely. We don't see much gainers at the moment. Hold on, we do have a gainer here. This is the Lamborghini of Saber. What can they do? Where can they head? That's P6,
Ooh.
7/10 down on that Caffey.
Yeah, beautiful run by Saber. They were able to get themselves two extra spots, which all you need. But Saber, unfortunately, maybe pushed it a little bit too hard, got a little bit wide going out of turn one. But they were thankfully able to save it and try to regain what they lost.
Absolutely. We do have quite a number of gainers in the back here. We have Katie, who is currently 5/10, actually 4/10 down on their time. They have MNU in the GTR 110 and Vossi trying to set up a lap time. They're currently 4/10 down, 3/10 down, and that's the list of gainers we have. We have another flyer from Caffey. That is the number 21 Rexy Porsche coming out of the Williams corner into Bentley straight.
Heading into Bentley, they're 1/10 up their previous time. It's not going to be a massive gain, but a gain nonetheless, and it's more time Azure will have to make as they head into Nelson corner. A little bit squirrely going out of the corner, but they were able to save it. But fortunately, they were able to kind of keep it going out of Brundle. But you can see that car is super squirrely going through that combo. It's the rear end of that Porsche where the motor is in the rear end of these Porsches, and trying to throw these cars around the corners. If you're not doing it right, you're gonna have a lot of trouble, and it's definitely gonna be a wild ride. That's for sure.
Absolutely, and Azure is in the pits. There's no way he's setting another lap. That's day qualifying session done for Azure. So who could steal that front row? Currently we have RK who is 2 tenths down on their time, could possibly steal pole, could possibly steal that position from Azure as they head into the bomb hole corner, into Karam, as coming into the final corner of Murray's. It's going to be close. What can Arcade do? It's an
Ooh, too
invalid lap.
wide.
That's
That was such.
unfortunate. That's RK not setting a lap for qualifying. That lap could have set him in the front row. It could have set him on pole. That was really unfortunate for RK.
Yep. As we follow along with Randomy, they're heading on their way out of. I believe that is Murray, or I'm sorry, that is Agostini. No, that was Murray's. I'm sorry. They're heading down to the main street, 2 tenths up. Is that going to give them a position? Yes, it will. They are now P7 as the qualifying has come to an end.
Not
Beautiful
yet.
run by Randomy.
Not yet. Our last driver, Nick, who is currently 2 tenths down, could possibly steal 7th and 6th. Touch wood as they head into the Murray's corner. What can the number 25 MSRL Porsche do? That yellow and black tiger stripe car. That is a time worthy of P6.
Six. Woo. Also,
That was
the term is knock on wood, Suzuka.
knock on wood, yes. But yes,
The you hmm?
but yes, we did have quite an excellent qualifying that kept us on our toes. But in the end, Caffey took pole and is going to have to fight with Azure in the front row.
Yeah, definitely. Um, uh, Definitely still a very close race. Though Cafe was able to improve and gain a 10th on Azure, that isn't really gonna that is still only a 10th, and that kind of, in my opinion, if you're within a 10th or 2 tenths of a person, you still got a fighting chance. All you gotta do is just keep the pressure on them, and I think that's what Azure's going to do, and that's what they've been very good at so far. They've been very good at keeping the pressure, especially on Cafe, going in going on to the race. It's just been an unfortunately with just unfortunate incidents with them that were just well out of his control. There was nothing you could do. So
Yeah.
hopefully this race tides will change and they will be able to get their first win in this series.
Absolutely. Come turn one and turn two, it's going to be interesting to see who comes out in front. If it's Azure who takes the lead immediately or slowly puts that pressure on Caffey. But we do have another threat from behind. It's the Porsche and McLaren again. RK in the McLaren and Wushel in the Porsche. It's interesting that these first two rows are basically McLaren and Porsche.
Definitely. And another person that we haven't really talked about is Simon Luck. Simon Luck had a very good time of a 146.7, and they were able to they're doing what they've always been doing, just keeping it clean and staying out of trouble. And it's really worked out for them in the end. And I think this race, especially, it's gonna if all goes to plan, it might really work out for them. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, you can never know when it comes to a treacherous track like Snetterton, but Simon, a driver who's been constantly under the radar, but getting those times up, getting those laps down, and just finishing those positions. That's the driver I like. That kind of reminds me of me in as well, starting a team, owning they own the Escargo team, but also just keeping quiet, staying under the radar, and just getting those finishes where it matters. I like this guy. As we do have a report on a penalty, but
A
this is
warning.
a warning, just a warning to the car 621 of Porsche, the Porsche of Spirit for the exiting of pit lane and re-entering the circuit at speed.
Yeah, that's super unfortunate, but thankfully it was only a warning, so it must not have been too egregious. We unfortunately were not able to catch it as we get this beautiful overlook of Snetterton. It's a really nice. I will say, despite the tight quarters and just the way these quarters are, I wouldn't say it's a horrible track, but I kind of get the opinion of, this is definitely not a track that if you're learning how to sim race or, just starting in sim racing or racing in general, this is kind of not one of those tracks that you want to be this your first track because this is a lot of close quarters, not a lot of room to make any moves. You're basically like where you qualify is really gonna matter where you're going to be in the end.
Absolutely. As we walk onto the grid, we have, of course, the number 21 pole sitter Rexy Porsche of Cafe, and alongside them, the P2 car, the number 765 of Azergo, who is only 110 down. What can they do come race day? Behind them is the next row, the number 250 McLaren of RK, and the number 69 Short Racing Porsche of Wushel. And the third row is composed of the number 31 Simon Luck. Alongside him is MSRL Porsche Nick Newby. Behind them is the Lamborghini number 523 of Saber Kitsune. What can they do as they pair up with the number 73 Ferrari of Randomy? Behind these two, we have the number 621 Spirit in the 61 Porsche, and alongside another Porsche who is the number 6, the Golf-esque Porsche of Katie. The last two rows we have number 808, that Nissan GTR of MNU underscore, and alongside them is the Short Cub Blue Shark E-Racing number 272 Aston Martin of Newt. And the last row composes of number 15, that is Vossi, and behind them, starting in the back, is Dipping Sauce, the number 992 Aston Martin.
Yes, definitely a very interesting grid as we hear the engines revving. That means 30 seconds to go. We are almost time for the cars to start their warm up lap and get ready to go racing as we await for them to start making their pace lap. It should be any second now. We're just basically waiting for them to be unleashed any time now. Hopefully, we will be getting going
There
as
we
we
go.
see. There we go. Here we go with Caffey leading the pack single file as they head down the long straight. Thankfully, this what the other I would say interesting thing about it is this is kind of a short track, so not a lot of time to get those brakes and tires warmed up. So they're gonna have to use every ounce of straight that they have to get those tires prepped and ready to go.
Absolutely. And I was about to say this before the grid walk. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Like, it was my rookie season in the GT3 series. I think I remember I was in a McLaren. Round 2 was Snetterton, and I absolutely hated that track. But the more I learned the ropes of ACC, the more I started to find a bit of a liking to this track. I mean, it's not the best in GT3s, but come other cars like the GT4s, it surely is an interesting track, that's for sure. So you really gotta appreciate these tracks, no matter how treacherous, no matter how torturous they get. Even if I make fun of Snetterton giving it names, it's still a pretty decent track, and hopefully will provide great racing here as we see the drivers exit Agostini still getting ready for their formation lap.
Yeah, last time we were here, it was the M2 Cup, and it definitely provided some interesting moments, few mistakes as well. So it'll be very interesting to see how they perform in this race as we follow along with Caffey with the entire field behind them as we head down toward Williams and onto the Bentley Straight. Definitely a little bit of weaving coming from the cars behind as we get ready to go racing on their way to the Nelson complex. So I gotta ask, like, who do you think's gonna win this?
Hmm. I as much as I want to say that I believe that Caffey could take a third win. I do believe that. I think I do have a glimmer of hope for either of the McLarens of Azure and RK to somehow snatch that win from the Porsches, and finally we have a non-Caffey winner.
I will. I'll say this, and I do agree with you. But as we see the cars head down double file on their way to Murray's, I'm gonna say I agree. We'll just have to wait and see as we get ready to go racing. Here we go. Any second now, we're gonna be green, green, green. So
Yeah, here they come down to Murray's, that final 90-degree left-hander as the grid lines up, as getting ready to start this race as they wait for the green flag. Keep that car in 70 kilometers an hour. I don't know what that is in miles per hour, but we are almost approaching green flag conditions as these cars line up. Wait for the green flag patiently. And
any second now.
it's go, go, go! It's Caffey. That looks like they had a great start already down the inside. Azure. Marshall's got a great start over Arcade. Coming into turn one. It's close. They almost touch into turn one, but Azure runs the outside. Oh my goodness! Here comes
That was
Azure.
trouble
As
in the
they
back.
come into turn two. Eh, But
Heading down
Azure. But Azure has stolen the lead from Caffey into turn one and leads this race.
What an amazing move by Azure. The will of that man to just send it into turn one. I think they felt like it was the only time they could actually get it to work, and it did, but it was very close. They did make a little bit of contact going out of the corner, but they were able to make it work as Azure now leading the race as we head down to out of Agostini on their way to Hamilton. Azure now getting a little bit of time as we follow along with Katie as they go really wide. Super wide, allowing Newt to kind of get a move in. And as they touch, that was Randomy.
Randomy and Fossey.
Yeah, that was Randomy getting. That was super unfortunate, but thankfully nothing too major. Randomy is able to get back on track. So is Fossey, and not a lot of positions lost as they head down toward the Bentley Straight. So far, so good. Here we are in the Nelson complex. Caffey tried to go a little bit deep in there, but it didn't work out as you're still holding firm as we head down toward Bomb Hole. This is definitely a lot of close quarters racing, but now Azure, all they have to do now is just hold that lead and see what they can do as they head toward Murray's. Again, Caffey is just getting in as deep as they can, trying to get as much time as they can and maybe try to psych out Azure. It's not worked so far, and I don't see that working anytime soon.
Absolutely. Caffey is right behind that tail of the RRP McLaren of Azure. Can Azure hold him off as we head into a replay of the start here? You can see there, Washel with a brilliant start in the back, and Azure just closing in, inching in, and then getting a bit later on the brakes, hanging around the outside. That is a brilliant move, I gotta say.
Definitely an amazing move, but a little bit risky as well. That almost could have been both their races done, but they were able to get it to work. As we head down into lap 2, Caffey goes a little bit wide. They were able, not a lot of time lost, but definitely will work out for Azure. I'm beginning to wonder maybe that later down the line, will that become a factor later on?
Absolutely. These tires, I feel like the tires are going to be a factor in this because it looks hot out there, and of course Snetterton, a track full of corners. They just have to keep these tires as clean and as conserved as they can.
Yeah, as we follow along in the rear end of Azure, you can see Caffey's just right on the bumper of Azure, trying to find any way to get around them. And no luck yet as we head on down through Bomb Hole on our way to Murray's, and no such luck as we see Caffey again. The brakes on that Porsche are just I think a little bit better than the one in the McLaren, and they're just able to get so close but not able to get enough time to make a move.
Absolutely, Caffey closing it in that Porsche. Much better brakes than in the McLaren. Caffey goes a bit wide on the grass, but I don't think that affects them much. As I think it kind of does, as Caffey is wide on that Montreal hairpin. but behind them, Wushel and RK. Currently it's a McLaren, Porsche for the podium.
Yeah, and Azure doing a very good job of keeping that lead going as they head down toward Agostini, nice and tight. Caffey again going a little wide. I don't know. Like, I kind of feel like maybe there's a bit of a tire wear issue or something, because that's twice now they've gone fairly wide compared to Azure.
Well, I think Caffey is just trying to find the limits, trying to find his way up onto that rear bumper of Azure as they're really on the limit, almost touching the grass coming out of Williams. Caffey is charging as hard as he can, getting close to that tail of that McLaren, but nothing seems to work so far.
Yeah, nothing has worked. Azure is maintaining their composure and just doing their best to defend against the onslaught that is Caffey in that Porsche, and so far so good. I see I see an incident. I think that's new. That is new. I think they had an issue with the Nelson complex. We'll do our best to see if we can get a replay. All right, we were able to. Let's see what happened.
As you can see, coming into Brundle, what is their braking, and coming into Nelson. They've caught the sausage curve. They've caught the sausage curve, all right. And yeah, that can really unsettle a car. Even a curb muncher like an Aston Martin couldn't take that.
Yeah, and I'd also like to point out, good job on Katie. They almost went to the back of Newt, but were able to save it. So that almost could have been not just one driver, but two. Thankfully, they were able to get around Newt and not have any issue. But that is super unfortunate. That is a position lost for Newt, and now just continue their charge and see what they can do.
Absolutely, as Caffey and Azure are actually running away from the closest car, which is Wushel, leaving nearly a 2-second gap between that pack and this pack.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, good for them, because they aren't going to have to worry about anyone else. But the thing about it is, that also means that these two drivers are giving them everything they've got. Azure doing an amazing job defending against Caffey, because Caffey has just been going in as deep as they can. As we follow along with Caffey into the Nelson combo, they were able to do fairly well and are just keeping within, between a half a second and a second of Azure, and giving them a very firm reminder that they have not gone away, and they won't anytime soon.
Absolutely, there is this chase between Caffey and Azure is really setting apart the grid as we focus now on the back. Oh my god, Randomly got a bit loose there, but nice save there.
That was dipping, actually. They did what Newt did and touched the corner going into Brundles, but they were able to save it, but they unfortunately almost collected Randomly in the process. Thankfully, they were able to avoid it.
Yeah, Randomly and Dip having a close quarters battle in the back. This battle in the back is almost as intense as the battle in the front. I gotta say, just two different machineries. It's an Aston versus a Ferrari this time. But as we look back into the front, I think Caffey is closing in a bit. Caffey's getting a bit closer on Azure. This battle is still going on. It's almost been 10 minutes and they're still fighting at it like it's the last few laps.
Yeah, they're definitely giving it everything again as Caffey goes again wide. They are really pushing that car as hard as they can. I don't know if this is the right strategy if you think about it, because the more they push, the more they wear out those tires. Yeah, you have a pit stop to, replace the tires. As you see Caffey trying to find any way to try to psych out Azure, going outside, inside, trying to find a gap, and it's not worked. Azure is holding firm in the middle, making sure Caffey has no way to get around them.
As we see a penalty, we have a 5-second penalty on Randomly. I don't know what that is for, but they're going around the outside of Dip, coming into Brundles. It's going to be a close one. Coming into the inside, is he going to make this move? Oh, quite close, but not quite. Randomly That was quite a daring move, but they just couldn't make it stick. But Caffey right behind the Porsche as they're blocking. Oh my goodness, this is close battles everywhere you see. Right in the front,
Ooh,
right in the back. Oh, Caffey goes a bit wide. But my
Caffey,
point still stands. So much
Caff,
battles everywhere.
Caffey is doing everything they can to get around this McLaren, and it has not worked at all. Azure is still holding firm, but you gotta wonder how long will that take. At this point, all it would take is for Azure to make one tiny mistake, and then Caffey may be able to retake this lead, and Azure is just not letting them have it. Keeping a very defensive line through every corner. As you can look at the deltas, Caffey is purple sector everywhere, but even with these times, they can't get around to Azure. They are making sure that Caffey works for every second that they gain on them, and it is basically worked to perfection. But you gotta ask the question, how's Azure's tires and how's Azure's composure at the moment? Because I definitely can tell you, if that were me, I'd be sweating bullets.
Absolutely, Azure making that McLaren as wide as you can as we pan into Sabre coming into Brundle. There, I think, where is Sabre? They're currently 7th, right behind the MSRL Porsche of Nick. And there we go. We have a wide goer. Who is that?
That I think was Katie that went wide going out of Brundles. As we keep following Azure, I also have an update from our stewards. The 5-second penalty for Randomy was for a was for braking late and making contact with the car number 15. That would be
That was the incident we
Vossi,
saw.
yeah.
That was the incident we saw in the opening lap.
Yeah, they gave the position back, so no major penalty. It could have been a lot worse, but 5 seconds is still 5 seconds. It's returned to the fight between Azure and Caffey. It is unrelenting. Caffey is just all over this racetrack, trying to find any place they can, and it has just not worked. They are just using every inch to try to make a move. As we see Caffey try again to make a sniffing on the outside, but it did not work. Azure holding firm.
Azure still making that McLaren as wide as he can. They're both putting so much you can really imagine how much stress they're putting the tires through, especially Cappy, who's in that dirty air, who's in that slipstream, and who keeps on touching and skirting the grass. That's slightly worse for their tires than what Azure's currently on.
Definitely, but you could see Caffey is just trying they're just trying every trick in the book to try to psych out Azure, but Azure is having nothing of it. They have just held the line, keeping it cool, and Caffey is just going wide and wide and wide, and they just can't find a way as Caffey goes deep, really deep, almost touching the back of Azure, but they were able to save it. That was super close. That almost could have been heartbreak again, but Caffey able to save it.
That was so close indeed. Caffey really aggressive at these breaks as Azure misses their apex. What will this mean for Caffey? But Caffey's hit a little bump. Caffey once again really hard on those brakes. That Porsche much better on the braking than the McLaren, but that McLaren's wide. It's a pretty wide car, and it's a pretty quick one at that too.
Yeah, definitely keeping it fast, keeping it cool, making sure that Caffey has to work for every inch and every attempt that they do to try to gain that lead, and it is working absolutely to perfection. And I gotta say, I think at this point, if I were Caffey, I would almost not even try, because you are setting the fastest times at the moment. You are really working hard. Yeah, obviously you want to try to psych out Azure, but at this point you've got 6 minutes, I'm sorry, till pit lane. You probably at this point want to be thinking, do you want to go for the undercut or the overcut and try to see if you can make that position there, because you're definitely the faster car. You could definitely make those times. You are right on the bumper of Azure. All you need at this point It's just to have a better pit exit than Azure, and then you'll
Uh,
have the lead back.
oh, there's Wushel and RK who had a close fight at the back. There's a bit of contact there, but going into the undercut strategy you mentioned, Wolfin, I do believe Cafe really needs this undercut. Now, will it pay off for Cafe? I don't know, but he really has to find a way to get past Azure, even if it means pitting earlier than Azure. Oh, Cafe had a look into the inside, but didn't feel like it. That was not going to go well. But Cafe, really aggressive. Really, he's the much quicker car at the moment. Cafe has to do something. Cafe definitely needs to undercut.
Yeah, I agree. I honestly think at this point it's as we see Azure go super deep. They were able to save it, but they were so deep in the grass. Azure now taking the defensive line, going on the inside. It's now nose to nose, neck to neck, going out of Agostini. It's a little bit of a squirrely move from Caffey. They weren't able to make it work, and now it's Azure back in the lead. That was so close.
But Cafe down the inside. Oh, they're touched. It's a bit close. Cafe in the grass, but Cafe backs out. That move was never going to make it. As soon as the pressure cracks, Cafe, that Brexy Porsche, really sneaking into every crack and crevice of that McLaren.
Man, my heart just stopped watching that little bit of a scuffle. That almost was heartbreak for either one or both of our drivers in the lead. As we get a replay of this, let's see what happened here as we follow Caffey once again on the
Hamilton.
rear end. Yeah, you can see, I think this was just after the turn. As you can see, that was so close. I think they did make a little bit of contact as we get back live. Following Azure, it looks like, Azure still in the lead, holding on with every inch. Now my question becomes, is all this defending caused Azure's tires to be cooked up? Because that was super wide going into that corner.
Absolutely. I think Azure and Cappy definitely putting 110%, but Newton and score. They are on a fight, and it's MNU in the inside line. Newt goes wide. Newt goes very, very, very wide. That was rather unfortunate. So can they save it? Yes, they can. All they have to do now is just rejoin that track. Oh my God, that Aston just bouncing around, but Newt rejoins that track as safely as he can, not getting in Vossi's way. Kudos to them for that rejoin, even though it was a bucking Bronco.
It was a repeat of the Mercedes F1 car there going through the grass, but they were able to save it and got it to work. They got very close to the game. There actually is a game barrier in the middle of that open field. They got very close to it, but thankfully they didn't hit it, because that would have been a pretty big amount of damage. But now they've got to reclimb and go back at it. So as we continue to follow this race between Azure and Caffey, heading into the Nelson combo, in and out, nice and easy, no problems there. But Caffey, at this point, it's like they've gotten so close, but not able to get it to work. So we'll just have to see where it goes, as we can see that it's kind of opening up a little bit. I think at this point, maybe Caffey is deciding to maybe back off a little bit and then try again later on.
Absolutely. Caffey, as we get into a replay of RK and Wushel, this is what landed RK a recent 5-second penalty that he's been handed. As RK, does he dive down in the inside of Brundle? I think he does. Ooh, that's quite an aggressive drive. That is a bit too aggressive there, and of course Wushel had to go wide for that. I think that was a rather sketchy incident. But anyways, heading back into this Azure versus Caffey battle, I do believe behind that car, Caffey is just hoping that pit window comes as soon as he can. It's only 1 minute and 20 seconds until that pit window opens up, and Caffey could go for the undercut.
Yeah, but here's the other question. Do you think Azure is thinking that same thought? So the next question becomes, will Azure go for the undercut and try to undercut Caffey? because if that's the case, that may make things a whole lot more interesting. But at the same time, you do it as early as you can. As I see, oh,
Oh,
that is trouble with
Katie!
Katie. That's Katie, super wide. I wonder what happened there. As MNU goes by, I think they might have just had a little bit of an issue. Here we go, Azure and Caffey again. Azure is doing everything they can to keep that car in intact. 30 seconds. So unfortunately, I
I
think at
don't
this
think.
point, yeah, I don't think they're going to be able to get to the pit lane in time. It'll be pit lane will open after they go by, which may make things a little bit interesting.
As we have a replay of what happened to Katie, let's see what happens. Coming out of the Agostini corner, and then I think it happened in Hamilton. Oh, a bit wide on Hamilton. Very wide on Hamilton. Absolutely super wide on Hamilton. Oh, he's all cut across the racing track. And that was a close one. Imagine if someone was there. That would be a really sketchy moment for sure.
Definitely a bit of a sketchy. That would have definitely been a heart attack moment, but thankfully they were able to save it. And we are now below 40 minutes, and that I believe means that pit window will be open. I believe it should be any minute. Caffey again
it's
going
actually
wide.
Open right now.
Yeah, pit lane is now open. So now here comes the pit strategies in play, as Azure I think went a little deep into the corner going into Hamilton. They were able to make it work, but you know, that's dirty grass on your tires, and that's definitely something you don't want with somebody like Caffey right on your tail, because they've tried once, didn't work, but now you don't want to make another mistake and have an issue. Let's see what happens here as they head down the Nelson complex. No issues so far, but again, Caffey is just able to gain so much time in these corners compared to Azure, but they've just not been able to make that move and get it to stick.
Of course, that Porsche, a really strong car when it comes to the low-speed corner bits. The McLaren, a more aero-dependent car, would rely on, as you can see, Azure coming in for the undercut, and Caffey would probably go for the overcut. This is an interesting play of strategy battles, as we see Azure coming into the pits, getting ready for their pit stop.
Yeah, I had a feeling. I definitely had a feeling that this was a strategy here. Azure did this once before. Their tires must have been in dire shape, and Azure did the smart thing, came in early. This has worked for them before. The only reason it didn't work for them at Spa was because of the heartbreak between them and Sabre. But this time, it has just been Caffey and Azure. And if Azure's able to get this to work, then maybe it will be Azure taking the lead from Caffey.
Absolutely, the first two drivers to pull into the pit lane, Azure and Katie, as you can see, Azure just exiting the pits. That McLaren just screaming, "Watch out, Caffey, here I come."
Yeah, here we go, and I'm keeping an eye on our strategy. That pit was no issues whatsoever. So now it's just a matter of Azure just having to do it, drive, and hope that he doesn't run into any lap traffic, as we see follow along with Wushel heading into the Nelson complex. So far, Wushel, aside from the issue with RK, has had a fairly nice time in P3, now P2, as they defend against Simon Luck and RK. And speaking of Simon Luck is all over the back of RK, trying to find the move, but no luck so far. As one comes into pit, but Simon doesn't. Yeah, that's RK in the pits, so they're gonna go for an early pit stop as well. So here we go. Strategies are now coming into play. Let's see how they play out.
Absolutely, the tires might be a factor coming to the closing stages, but this is Snetterton. I think you want to. Oh my goodness, that is Nick going really wide. But as I was saying, these tires are going to wear out if you come in early, but as we go into a replay of that's Nick going wide. But
Yeah,
as I was saying, these tires they may wear, but I think coming in is early because you do have that track advantage. It's really tricky to overtake.
ooh,
That's how we
that
got
was
wide. They jumped the curb.
yeah. They jumped the curb, went a little bit too deep, and unfortunately, that was it. That's super unfortunate, but it gave Saber the position, so I don't think Saber's going to be complaining about that.
Alright, yeah, that is for sure. But yes, this Snetterton track is pretty tricky to overtake unless you find the right place. You're
And
brave enough, and that's Katie going wide again. That is down bomb hole. That's like the third time Katie's gone involved into an incident with the track.
let's see what happened here. Maybe they spun at the
Oh,
Nelson complex.
that is Nelson, and there's a second spin, I believe. Because
Yeah,
surely you can't, because Bumble is... Oh, yeah, I think the
yeah,
rear just loses itself against them. That
yeah.
Porsche beginning to
We
look like a
got
handful on low fuel, that's for sure.
Yeah, and let's not forget that those tires are probably still cold, so the grip isn't all there, so you can't push as normally as you could. As we get back live, as newbie Nick is now heading into the pit lane to fulfill their pit lane obligation, heading into uh, heading back in as we see M&U go by. We have 3 drivers in. We have Simon and Wushel both inside. That actually makes things very interesting because they were not within a second of each other. Let's see who comes out first as we follow along with Caffey, who is yet to fulfill their stop, heading out of Agostini again, like just a little bit wide, but it's worked for them. They still hold the fastest time, so but the question then becomes as we head back to the drag race, it was Wushel who got the better start. Simon right behind him, so it'll be a battle out of pit lane as Wushel gets a mad dash out of the pit lane to try to make as much of it as they can. But look who's behind them. That's RK. They unfortunately for RK, they lost out to Simon, but they aren't too far behind, so this is something they can work with.
Absolutely, that overcut looks to be working, at least for Wushel, as Caffey still stays out and tries to overcut Azure. It's going to be very interesting to see how these time... Oh, RK had to serve a 5-second penalty, that's right.
Oh yeah, that's
Caffey,
right.
But Caffey, it's going to be close between them and Azure, as Caffey is he planning to come in? They are not planning to come in yet. You can see that green Rexy Porsche not coming in. I think they're going to wait. They're going to go long into the 30-minute mark as the Caffey goes into turn 1. But Azure's got a lot of clean air and a huge chance actually to set those lap times. But right now, Caffey's holding the fastest laps of this race.
Yeah, so far they've been the fastest car on the field. So I think the strategy at this point is try to gain as much time as you can and then go in. But remember, you can't stay out too long because those tires are probably not in the best of ways. Keeping yourself out on used tires, especially now that your opponent is on fresh tires and making ground, it might not be the strategy. We'll have to see when it comes out. This happened before when Katie at Spa, Azure went in super early, and with Azure being in open air, they were able to make up that time, and then were able to get by Caffey, not by a lot, but enough for it to matter. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see later on if they'll go in, maybe a little bit sooner.
Absolutely, Caffey still slighted. Oh, I think, as I said, that Caffey looked a bit loose coming out of Nelson. But as I said, Caffey currently 2/10 faster than Azure on their last lap. It's very close between these two. The last 2 laps have been a close race, but considering that slip from Caffey, I think this is not going to be a good time. I think those tires are already begging for mercy. Please don't use us anymore. Use that new set of tires that you have in your pit stop.
Yeah, definitely. At this point, because the amount of fighting that Caffey did in this stint is insane. And I will say, like, those tires are definitely probably are more than likely not in the best of ways, but I guess they feel like it will work if they've stayed out this long. As Caffey again goes wide, this isn't. I don't know, man. I don't know what's going to go on. It might work, it might not, but I'm gonna be honest. I don't think this. I think this is not the play.
Absolutely. Caffey really trying to push those overworked, overworn, pretty worn tires to the limit as Caffey is beginning to feel the dirty air from Katie because Caffey has Katie ahead of them by some distance. Azure still has that fresh, clean air so that he can set those optimal times.
Absolutely. As we follow along with Cat, heading down toward the Nelson complex, nice and easy, no issues there. Definitely don't want a mistake there, especially now as we see them heading down toward again into Bommel. They go a little bit wide. I I don't know. Like they've been pretty good going through that corner, and now all of a sudden they just go a little bit wide. It could have just been a little mistake. But look at this. They've got lap traffic coming up. Let's see what the strategy is. Are they going to stay out? Yes, they
Oh
are going to
boy.
stay out. And look at this. This may become
This
an issue. Look who else is
that's
coming
more
out.
traffic for Caffey as from in the form of dipping sauces 992 Aston Martin. This is surely going to compromise Caffey's strategy and pay into the hands of Azure in the McLaren.
Yeah, absolutely. They're heading into the hairpin. They were able to get by Azure no problem, and now they've got another car to deal with in a few seconds time as they head out of the corner, nice and easy. And Caffey is just on a, I guess, on a roll, but not on a roll as they've usually been because remember they've been going wide even without traffic, even without fighting Azure. So I'm wondering how those tires are feeling at the moment because if something tells me those tires are not in a good straight at the moment.
Absolutely, they are sure to be hot and bothered, especially in this hot sunset Snetterton circuit. As you can see, the sun is currently setting. It's not daylight anymore. It's sunset. As you can see, Caffey really pushing the limit of that Porsche, trying to make that overcut work. It's quite a huge undercut, all right, but if you leave it out for too long, you might either leave, you might either miss out on the pit window or just lose time in general.
Yeah, you'll just lose time, and Caffey is definitely losing time again out of bomb hole. They go super wide, almost into the grass, but I don't know. I mean, if they feel like this is gonna work, then it'll work. I think what Caffey is just trying to do at this point, have the fresher tires for the end so they can really push hard, and that may work because the grip advantage would be massive if they try to wait till the very last minute because Caffey will be on much fresher tires as they follow along with Azure Goat heading down the Bentley Straight on their way to the Nelson Complex. No problems for Azure. They've got basically clean air and plenty of time to make nice, clean, good laps. And they've and so far they've pretty much done so.
Absolutely. I believe this is going to be a strategy battle for the extreme opposites. You have Azure, who's pitting the very first moment that pit window opens, versus Caffey, who I believe is going as long as they can, get to that 20-minute mark, and pit the latest he can for those very fresh tires for the rest of the 20 minutes of this race.
Yeah, as you see, the strategies have now found. Caffey is now the only one to have not fulfilled their pit stop. They are 52 seconds ahead. So 30 seconds plus the amount of time it would take for them to get out of the pit lane. Azure, I think, has it. I think at this point, I think the strategy doesn't work anymore.
Oh, that's
because
Cappy
if
going wide. Cappy went wide on my cameras. I think
and so
the
did
tires
Azure.
have.
Azure went wide going out of Agostini.
Oh, it's drama everywhere we go. It's Azure. I think Azure's compromised more than Caffey as Caffey comes into the pits already. This is going to be an intense strategy game. Will the overcut pay off for Caffey as Caffey comes into its pit stop? And Azure, who is just exiting the Williams corner. This is going to be close. 30 seconds for tires. This feels like a rather long pit stop. You're just begging for it to be done as soon as possible. But Azure coming into Brundle, coming to Nelson. I'm coming, says Azure. He's coming to get you, and I'm coming to get you. Azure really putting on the chase, really putting on the limit as he goes quick down bomb hole. And well, this is going to be a close one as Caffey's just recently dropped the jacks. Azure just in the final corner. It's going to be close, but
I don't think they're gonna do it. I think Caffey's got it. Yes, Caffey's got it. They're full speed, but there's Azure coming down the straight. Unfortunately, I think that wide corner going out of Agostini cost him. Had that not have happened, I think it would have worked. But unfortunately, because of that, it's now given Caffey the lead and a 4-second gap between them and Azure. So now it's just Caffey just needs to run away at this point, and I think that's going to be it.
absolutely, that overcut really paid off. We didn't expect it to happen, but it surely did. As Caffey, all he has to do is just run away with it. He doesn't have to worry about anything. Azure has Azure has more worn tires. You have the fresh compound. You can run this as hard as you can and not worry about the number 765 McLaren behind you. So, Caffey, I believe that is a 3-time win, but we're still not sure yet. Anything can happen here in Snetterton, here in sim racing in general, just as we said earlier on.
Yeah, we've had stranger things happen before, as Caffey is now on the main straight. Azure way in the back with Wushel right on their tail, and that was just super unfortunate. And unfortunately, as I say that, Caffey goes pretty deep going into Brundles. They almost hit the sausage barrier, but then goes super wide in through bomb hole, but we're able to save it. But thankfully, no major issues as we follow along with Caffey heading out of Murray's. Now it's just a matter of can Azure maybe try to gain some time. But as we have trouble, that's Saber going out of I think that's
another
Brundle.
Victim of the Brundle Nelson complex. Saber Kitsune unfortunately got caught up as we get into a replay.
Let's see what happened here. Yeah, this is another victim of the Nelson complex heading down into the corner. Do they hit the sausage curb? Yep, yeah. That's exactly what happened. That
even
sausage
a mild
curb
nudge can turn you around just like that. that really rotated the Lambo Saber.
Yeah, it's super unfortunate, but you know, no major damage. They didn't go wide or hit anything, so their tires are upset, but that's just about it. As we get on the move, and Whoosh, that's Simon Luck going on the inside of Wushel, able to make the move work. Now, here we go. This is an intense battle for third, as Simon Luck is able to get by Wushel and try to now hunt for Azure Goat, heading down toward Williams. Simon, I think, just went a little bit wide, but not enough for it to really matter. Heading into the Bentley straight, that Aston's going to have a lot more power than the Porsche going into the straights, as the gap now separates heading into the Nelson complex.
Absolutely, that Aston just woke up and is currently choosing violence, making a move on Wushel, and looks to be wanting to chase Azure for a potential P2 finish.
Yeah, as we get back to another battle, this is Spirit and Saber heading into the Nelson complex. I don't know if you want to make a move there. As they head out of Brundle, Saber right on the back of Spirit, keeping them You're keeping the reminder as Spirit goes really wide going into palm hole. No, no time lost though, but that's a definitely advantage Saber as they head down toward Murray's. Is Saber going to try to make a move on the straightaway? Because remember, that Lambo is an NA engine. There's no turbos, so it's instant power. And Saber is going to take full advantage of that as well as the draft. But you can see Spirit doing his best to try to break that draft, heading down into turn one. Is there going to be a move? No, there is not. The gap is not there. So now it is just a matter of maybe Saber just putting on a little bit more pressure.
Absolutely. Saber tried to get as close as he can to Spirit, that Lamborghini right under that tail end of that Porsche. As we see, we have Cafe still. Cafe has extended their lead to 6 seconds, so I believe the fresher tires, there's no way Cafe's going to win this race, as Simon is closing in as well. So this is two things that Azure has to deal with: Cafe running away and Simon getting closer and closer up that rear end.
Yeah, because remember, they don't have Wishel behind in front of them anymore, so that means that all that power of that Aston, especially in those straights, can really give it to can really put on the pressure to Azure. So long as Azure doesn't make a mistake, I believe it should be okay. But remember, Simon is on the fresher tires compared to Azure. Azure went in super early and now is basically running on much older tires. And at this point, it's just a matter of what can happen.
Yeah, who blinks first, who cracks first, is going to be a battle. There's quite some distance, I admit, but remember, anything can happen. You still have Wushel chasing Simon. You have Simon on the chase of Azure, but here we go. We have Saber versus Spirit Part 2. As Saber is quite some distance away. I think Spirit has gained some time on that Lamborghini.
Definitely gained a little bit of time on Saber, but that doesn't mean the fight is over as she has Saber again pulling a Cafe, going super wide, going out of turn one into the hairpin. No issues there, because again, I want to point out the Lambo doesn't, compared to the Porsche, the Lambo is NA. And unless I'm wrong, the Porsche is, I believe, does have a turbo, so that turbo lag does play a factor in going out of the corner. But the Porsche definitely has a little bit more corner exit ability, or corner entry and mid corner ability compared to the Lambo. So it's just a matter of what works better.
Absolutely, I'm not sure if that Porsche is NA or turbo. I think I remember it being an NA car, but nonetheless, that Lambo still got quite the mechanical grip, carrying that big, hefty V10 engine compared to the boxer engine of that tiny boxer engine of that Porsche. Quite a difference in engine size, but that Lambo still finding a way to match and get close to that Porsche.
Yeah, definitely the advantage in the streets is bent towards Saber, because if you watch going down the Bentley Street, the amount of time that they gained on Spirit going into the straight was pretty phenomenal, but they've just not been able to get them in the corners, because that is where the Porsche thrives, is in these tight corners, keeping them nice and easy. If you're the only one there, these Porsches just will run in these corners because they can just handle these corners so much better than these larger cars like the Lamborghini. As they head down toward the hairpin, no issues there, but you can see Saber kind of gaining a little bit of time, but not enough to really make a move yet. As we keep an eye on things, this seems to be the closest battle so far, as Saber has just been kind of both gaining and losing time behind Saber, and Saber goes super wide. Oh my gosh,
that is a huge incident.
That was a huge incident that was Agostini, I believe. And oh my god, it was almost a repeat of Spa. Let's get another angle of this. That was nuts. That was a heart attack moment for Saber. I don't know what happened there. It almost looked like Saber just lost their brakes and almost took Katie with them or just tried to go super late. They went, oh my
They
gosh,
clipped
what?
the grass. I think they clipped the grass, and that just spun the car, almost hitting Spirit.
Yeah, but if you look how fast Saber went into that corner. It looks like there was just no braking whatsoever. And that was definitely heartbreak for Saber, because that's now massive damage for that for that Huracan.
Huracan.
Yeah, I almost said Murcielago, but I caught myself. But yeah, I that was super unfortunate. As we have another replay coming up for you. This is the angle from Katie's perspective of this incident. I'm interested to see. Let's see how terrifying it is, because this is probably going to be very, very scary.
Oh yeah, my God! Clipped the grass. Light contact.
They clipped the grass and then clipped Katie as well. That almost ended in massive heartbreak.
Spirit is so lucky to not have been massively caught in that incident.
That was very good driving from Saber to try to get it away from Katie, but that is super unfortunate for Saber, because as you can see, Saber's in the pit, and that's Katie.
Goes wide. That's Spirit wide. That's and I think MNU closing in. That is going to feed them to the pack. That is MNU versus Newt.
Yeah, definitely. Now it's going to become a three-way battle. I think maybe that. Yeah, let's see what that is. Let's see what happened here, because I think was it just maybe the tires haven't fully recovered. Yeah, this is.
It's Nelson again. Oh no, this is. Yeah, this is Palmer. Oh, very wide, very wide. Absolutely wide. Oh, save it.
Looks like I think they just barely saved it, because I don't see any heavy damage on that car, so they were able to save it. But that also means their tires are not happy, and that is good news for MNU.
No,
as they hit the curb.
Sausage curb.
The sausage curb almost took out 3 people there, as Spirit touched that, just barely nicked that curb, and it definitely. Those tires are definitely not in the best ways, and that was another heartbreak moment, because that's now 2 positions down. Let's see what happened there.
Here's Randomy coming into action. Goes too late on the brakes, goes very wide, and yes, I think people are losing their brake markers.
Yeah, and Randomy has just gone off to the side. I don't know what happened there. Maybe their tires were gone or something.
I think they've retired from this race. They're calling it a day, strangely enough. But we see Azure, who's currently falling behind Caffey for sure, but Simon Luck currently 1.3 seconds behind Azure. That Aston Martin it's really closing in.
Yeah, that Aston Martin of Simon Luck is definitely gaining on Saber. I think these tires are just about had enough, and Simon is definitely taking advantage of that, and so is Wushel, because Wushel is right there with him. It's just that now become a matter of if it'll work as Azure goes super wide, going out of the corner. That is definitely not what you want, especially when you have 2 cars right behind you, as Azure comes out of the straight with Simon and Wushel right there with him.
Absolutely, Azure is falling into this battle. They definitely wanted to be in the battle in front with Caffey, but unfortunately they had to settle with Diamond and Wushel. But I say this is going to be an interesting battle for the podium, if not for the win.
Yeah, definitely. Unless something very horrible happens to Caffey, I think that's game, set, match for Caffey, because they are still gaining time, as we have just a little over 10 minutes, 12 minutes left, as Azure again goes wide. Now they're really pushing, as they really try to make up as much time as they can, but that's just more time for Caffey, as Simon and both Wushel and Simon kind of going right onto the corner as they head down toward Hamilton, heading toward Williams and the Bentley Straight. No issues so far, nice and clean, but that is definitely, Simon is definitely gaining on Azure as they head down the Bentley Straight.
Absolutely, Simon is really under 1 second now. Simon closing in slowly but surely. Simon, by the final laps, might get this P2 position.
Very much so. 10 minutes left. Minute 30. The minute 30s are the times. So about a minute and a half for each lap. So I would say probably within 8 or 9 laps are going to be left for this race. Plenty of time for anything to happen. And I think that's what Simon knows, and they're going to give it everything they got, especially knowing that that Azure has the older tires, and that means more time for him and losing time for Azure.
Absolutely, I feel that Azure is beginning to struggle a lot more on these tires. These tires are gone, to quote a certain man who is moving to Ferrari next year, but those tires really shredding up and just allowing Simon to creep in oh so closely. They are currently half a second under Sniff, currently four tenths down. Simon getting closer and closer by the looks of it. Those tires, those fresher, much grippier tires of that Aston Martin really taking advantage over the McLaren.
Definitely, and remember, now that they're within a half a second of each other, they are now within the draft of Azure. So that means Azure is now going to have to really contend with dealing with that draft. That Simon goes a little bit wide going into Williams, but we're nothing too major. But now here we go onto the straight, heading down the Bentley Straight as we follow on board with Simon Luck as he chased down Azure, heading down into the Nelson complex, nice and easy into the turn. No issues there as they are able to nail it nice and easy, heading down toward bomb hole. Nice as you see, Azure is getting a little bit of time going into that corner, but I think loses it in the more complex areas because the Aston I think just has a little bit more grip going in, through the tighter section than Azure does.
Clearly more grip than the McLaren. It's RRP versus S-Cargo, the two team leaders duking it out for the last 10 minutes. This battle is going down by the wire by the looks of it. Simon still under half a second I mean, behind that McLaren.
Yeah, absolutely. And now the question to Azure now is, what now? Because your tires are going, Simon's are not, and he is right on your bumper. You are now going to have to do what you did with Cappy and make yourself as wide as possible and make sure Simon does not have a move. But it's going to be a lot harder now because you had fresh tires then, you don't now. And it's now become a question of how much do you want to push? How much do you want to risk it? Do you accept this? Do you try to fight this? Or do you maybe try to think about your championship? As we see another trouble. That's Katie. That's Katie.
That is down Murray's by the looks of it.
Yeah, that looks like it's Murray's. As you see, Dip had also gone a little bit wide, going out of the corner. But let's see if we can see what happened here. This is in bomb hole, I believe. Did they maybe just go a little bit too wide?
Yeah, that is way too wide. Oh my goodness.
Really wide. It looks like they maybe missed their braking marker and broke way too late and just went wide into the grass. Super unfortunate. They've been having a fairly decent race as of late. As we go back to the fight between Simon and Azure, it has been Simon slowly but surely creeping up on the McLaren of Azure Goat, and it is not giving up and I don't think this is going to end anytime soon as they head down into turn one. No issues there, but you can see that Aston is slowly gaining on Azure.
Oh, this is definitely a close battle to take a look at, because Simon right off that rear end of the McLaren. That is going to be as close as it can get, maybe even closer. This could go down to the wire. This will go down to the wire actually, because Simon closing in much faster, braking much better with the grippier tires. Azure trying his best to make that McLaren as wide as it can be, but Simon's just closing in oh so closely, trying to pry his way, trying to find a gap, and it's deja vu all over again for Azure. It's just trying to defend from a quicker car. As we see, there is Newt versus MNU, a battle that's been going on for quite a while that seems to be slipping on the radar, but Newt right behind that GTR, but that GTR extremely quick down the power, but Newt with the dive in the Aston Martin, but no, not quite. It's good. It's still very close between GTR and Aston. Aston a more on the corners, I believe. No,
Yeah,
I think the GTR and Aston are quite similar. They're two big front engine cars that duking it out for that. I believe that is P7.
yeah, that's P7, and Newt has been really gaining on uh, MNU in the corners, but on the straight, that GTR is just gone. It is just so much faster than the Aston of Newt. So they've been taking advantage of these corners, and we see Newt again going into that corner. Going into that corner, they were just almost. I think they kind of clipped the curb a little bit, but not a lot. And MNU is just now under constant threat in these corners, but in the straights, MNU has just been running away with it with this recent update, as we see Newt riding on the draft of MNU as they head down toward the turn one. As Newt gonna try to go for a deep move. No, they thought better of it, letting off and trying to see maybe if they can make a move in later on.
It is indeed the battle of the boats here for P7. It's going to be a close one, as close as we have received update that Saber has been handed a 5-second penalty for the incident with what I believe his Spirit. Yes.
Ooh, that was super deep going into that corner. That was so deep that almost collected MNU, but Newt was able to save it. They have been trying this entire race to kind of get around MNU, but with no avail. The advantage in the inside section of Snetterton has been all Aston, and it has worked to perfection. But you can see Newt. I think their tires are actually in trouble, because going out of Williams, you can see they got very loose going out of Williams, and that cost them a lot of time.
Let's take a look back at Simon versus Azure. This is still going on. Simon is already 3/10 down on Azure, 5/10, but Simon's just getting really close. It's 3 minutes remaining of this race. Simon has to make a move within these 3 minutes, or that's just P2. That's just P3 for Simon. I'm sure that Simon wants that P2 spot. It would be a great position that would help him in the championship, but he does not want to take a risk that will compromise the both of them.
Absolutely. You don't want heartbreak, especially when you're halfway through the championship, because you only have 3 more races after this one, and you don't want anything bad. You don't want anything to happen to you as we head down toward Williams and the Bentley straight, where Azure has been a little bit better going down the straight compared to Simon, gaining a fair bit of time, but it's just these tighter corners. The Aston has just been doing so much better compared to the McLaren going into these corners, and Simon has just been able to make so much better moves as they head out of the Nelson complex. No issues there, but it's just been if Simon's going to make a move, he's gonna have to do it in the first 2 sections, because that has just been where Simon has been much better compared to Azure.
Absolutely, Simon and Azure being duking it out. As we see, Kathy's crossed the line. I think that's 2 more laps to go, but this battle will go on for 2 more laps. That's for sure. Because so Simon has essentially these 2 laps to make it or break it. Will it be a P2 or P2 for glory or just keep it safe and stay behind for P3. But Wushel closing in, that's another factor that can put pressure on Simon. He has to make a decision right here, right now.
Definitely, the Porsche's definitely been better in the inside section of this track, and they are now really giving it everything they've got. Now, right on the back of Simon, is Wushel goes super deep going into Agostini, and we're able to gain a lot of time, but they're right on the bumper of Simon as they try to find, maybe try to make a twofer, but I don't know. But it is now a three-way battle for second place as Azure doing everything they can to defend against these two cars as they head down toward Williams Corner and onto the Bentley Straight. And here we go, nice and easy through the straight, and with only 23 seconds left, this means that, will this be, I believe, this means it will either be, this will either be the last lap or the next one will, depending on where Caffey is.
Cappy's on the home straight right now. I think it's going to be close, but I think Cappy, is he slowing down? Not quite. He is extending that. That is one more lap. I thought he'd back out and bail and do the smart thing, but no. Let's wear these drivers out. Let's give them one more lap. But this is definitely playing into Simon's hands. This is definitely playing into Wushel's hands. This is not playing into Azure's hands, as they have to do another lap on these very worn tires, and they have the two cars of Simon and Wushel who are in the fresher tires right up their bumper.
Yeah, right on their bumper. As we see, Wushel goes a little bit wide, heading out of the hairpin, but that's not going to really matter. Not a lot of time lost as we head down toward Agostini, and Simon is doing everything they can. This is going to be the spot to, if they're going to do it, this is going to be the spot to do it here at Agostini. Simon right on the bumper as we see. Simon, I think, got a little bit loose going out of the corner, but we're not able to make the move as Azure heading now down into Hamilton and onto Williams. As we see, is that was Spirit?
Goes very wide. Oh my goodness! Oh look, no, keep it.
Wide.
No.
They spun it, unfortunately, but thankfully no major damage. As we get back to this fight between Azure and Simon, it looks like Simon was going to try to go for a dive, thought better of it, heading into the Nelson Complex. As this is going to be it. Only a few turns left, and I think Caffey, heading down the main straight as Caffey is going to take victory number 3 in this series. Nice and easy. No problems there as we follow behind,
Caffey
back to the fight. As we follow
Caffey
back.
looks unstoppable, but behind them is the three musketeers, but it's Azure who survives out in front. An incredible effort to keep those two behind him with those extremely worn tires. Of course, Simon filling up that final podium place, and Wushel, as you can see, weaving left and right. I think she's more than happy. I think she's happy enough with P4. RK behind them in P5, and Nick going very wide. Oh my goodness! But that is Nick for P6.
Yep, newbie Nick P6. There was a little bit of a squirrely exit going out of that corner, but they were able to save it. As we follow along with, that is MNU, and who is going to take P7 with an amazing fight from Newt as Newt hits the sausage curve going out of Murray's. That was a very intense fight, as I believe that will be then after Newt, it will be Vossi taking P9. And then finally, it'll be Spirit wrapping out our top 10.
And that is right. That is Spirit crossing the line, completing our top 10 as we wait for the 992 Aston Martin of Dipping Sauce to cross the line and finish up the whole grid.
Yes, I think we still have 2 more out on the field. Oh, nope, never mind.
Katie and Saber have been lapped.
Yes, that's right. They were lapped, so their race is already done, as Dipping just straight up sending it into off the course. As we get back to the final standings, it will be Caffey P1, followed by Azure Goat and Simon Luck P2 and P3. Then Wushel, RK, Newbie, M and U, and Newt. And then for P9 is Vossi and Spirit, followed by Spirit and Dipping Sauce. And wrapping out the bottom three would be Katie, Saber, and Randomy.
That is quite a race we had today. We almost had it. Azure almost had it. That was quite a close race coming from them and Caffey, but in the end, Caffey with that strong overcut just took away, just pulled off the supreme strategy and triumphed over Azure in the end.
Yeah, it's super unfortunate for Azure, but that's racing. What can you do? But that fight in the beginning was just absolutely insane. Definitely kept us on our toes, and hats off to them for hiding off as long as they did. And now, I believe that will more or less do it, unless we're gonna bring up the points. Um.
The,
So who do you? So why don't I ask you this? Who do you think did the best out of everyone, Suzuka?
I would say Simon Luck. I would say I have a few candidates, to be honest. First off, let's talk about Simon Luck. He has been under the radar for the most part of this race, but keeping quiet and just making the move, and just doing what is necessary to get into that P3 spot. He deserves all the credit for that. And I would also like to say Newt is an. I'm trying not to. I'm not being biased, but Newt has been unlucky these past two races. Lots of incidents, a few penalties, but I think Newt had a relatively clean race here in Snetterton. So big hats off to them, gaining 4 positions as well. So big hats off.
Yeah, and I guess I'll also state the obvious, and that would be Azure, who defended hard against Caffey in the first sector. That was an amazing fight. Caffey was not letting back, and Azure just kept their composure and were able to defend very well against Caffey. It was just super unfortunate that the pitch strategies did not work out, and Caffey was able to get ahead of them. But hats off, they did a stellar job during this race.
Absolutely, Azure deserves all that credit. He must be sweating bullets having to defend those two on very worn tires. You really have to give it to him, because yeah, he deserves that pat on the back.
Absolutely. And I think with that, I think we'll wrap it up for huh? We'll wrap it up for today. And you know, I'd say next week is going to be
That
the I
is
believe
that Laguna Seca.
oh, it is Laguna Seca. I couldn't remember off the top of my head. It will be Laguna Seca, one of the more demanding tracks, especially with the infamous corkscrew. Definitely going to put our drivers to the test. So be here next week for some much more, even more exciting action in the US of A.
Absolutely. We saw Caffey win the first 3 races. Can he continue that streak coming into the next half, or can someone come out of the spotlight, walk into the spotlight, and probably rain on this parade and take that win? It's going to be an interesting story for next week.
Definitely. And with that, I am Wolfin Foxdale, and my commentator here is Suzuka. And we'd like to thank you all for joining us, and we will see you all next week.
See you guys.